If you're somebody who feels anxious, terrified, maybe sometimes when hunger shows up, we're going to talk about why that is, and most importantly, what to do about it so you can create a really awesome, fun, playful relationship with hunger, because hunger isn't something to be medicated. I know it's hard to believe given the society we live in where hunger is almost being medicated like it's some kind of problem. But in fact, hunger is such a beautiful, natural thing that it's helped us survive all these years. And I know it feels insane that I even have to say this, but here I am because we're in a crazy world at the moment. So today, let's break down. We're going to get right to the heart of the problem. We're going to get to the center of where all this began, ground zero. And we're going to look at why hunger has become something that you are afraid of, that you might feel scared of. Now, I acknowledge some people don't feel fear at all with hunger, and maybe you flip between enjoying feeling hunger and feeling fear about hunger. So maybe it's a little bit of both. But today we're just going to dial into fear. And I want to really help you with lots of practical tools, as always, create a happy, healthy relationship with a normal bodily signal like hunger. Think of it the same as tiredness or needing to go for a pee. Sorry to be a bit crass, I guess. But ultimately, it is just a normal bodily thing. To eat, to fuel yourself up, to nourish yourself should be wonderful, should be exciting, should be something that we're not afraid of at all. The same way we're not really afraid of going to sleep, unless we watch too much Nightmare on Elm Street. But ultimately, our work is to rebuild that kind of delight and trust in hunger and a lack of fear. And we're going to do that today. If you're new to the channel, my name's Helen. I'm a coach who currently helps people break free of yo-yo dieting, often decades worth of emotional eating, binge eating, compulsive eating, and body shame. And I've been there. I've been in the trenches for 20 years. I struggled with compulsive eating, and I resonated so much with this question that I was given this week that I'm basing this live on. And so I'm going to be sharing with you some actual advice of the things I did to help rebuild my real delight in hunger. I mean, at first it started just becoming something that was fairly neutral, I wasn't afraid of anymore. And then it's become delight. It's wonderful because when we're hungry for a meal, it tastes so much better, doesn't it? All right, so let's dive in. By the way, if you enjoy this video today and you'd like to send me a question for the next Freedom Friday live, then find me on the socials, DM me, do whatever you need to do. Go to the website, foodandfreedomfoundations.com, pop me an email and let me know if you have a burning question. We'll attend to it before next weekend. I do these lives on a Friday because I recognize that A, on weekends, we have a bit of time to watch videos, and B, I'd love you to actually practice what I teach in the videos so you can get that sweet taste of freedom in the weekend ahead. So let's dive into hunger. And the first thing we want to do is separate out hunger, tummy hunger, which is the desire for nourishment and energy, versus a craving or an urge that is non-hunger related, the desire to eat that has nothing to do with hunger. Let's quickly separate those out because it's very important that not every desire to eat is hunger. And in fact, in the work that I do is I help people identify hunger very specifically, how it's showing up for them, so they can feel so certain when hunger's showing up, this is hunger. But when they've got a desire to eat that isn't hunger, they know, this is the one I'm going to need to work through. So we always want to honor hunger, and we want to work to eliminate all those other non-hunger urges. So hunger, as a quick distinction, is always in the belly. You'll feel a sort of grumbling and a growling and a squeezing, almost a tightness sometimes in the belly. Whereas those other non-hunger desires to eat, they tend to show up energetically. If you notice them physically, they're showing up everywhere else. So today what we're talking about is fear of hunger itself. And where does that come from? Well, in my experience, both personally and working as a coach, I've sort of narrowed it down to two places. They sort of two sides of the same coin. But the one is if somebody has had a sort of trauma of starvation inflicted upon them. I do work with men and women who've had parents who put them on a diet at an extremely young age. I had one incredible client whose mother put her on a diet from the minute she was born, just about, which is just heartbreaking. And any wonder her relationship with hunger could be so skewed and maybe full of terror. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. But for most people, there isn't a sort of starvation experience that was inflicted upon by war or whatever the case may be. It's usually that fear of hunger has come from a self-inflicted decision to deprive their beautiful growing bodies, because at the beginning of every single overeater, we usually find a diet that worked really well once. There was a moment at which you came to believe, and this isn't everybody, but it is about 99% of the people that I work with. But I bet there was a moment at which you came to believe that your body needed changing, that it wasn't enough, it wasn't attractive enough, good enough, whatever enough as it was. And you made the decision, or you were prompted to, but eventually you owned that decision and probably done multiple diets since then. You decided to restrict your food intake. And to do that, your relationship with hunger started to change. So you went from hunger being something that was just there. It showed up. You ate when there was a meal time and you rocked on with your day. And then suddenly hunger became something that you didn't listen to anymore, something that you needed to manipulate, avoid, maybe even cheat in a way through, how many people put off their first meal, buy a few cups of coffee because it kind of keeps you full, but that way, oh yeah, I've avoided hunger for a little bit longer. Meanwhile, your body was giving you a natural signal saying, we need some fuel on board for whatever reason, maybe for energy, maybe the nutrients that you needed. But you started to ignore hunger, avoid hunger, fake hunger. Your hunger became like the enemy. It was the thing you had to avoid at all costs, or at least try and ignore at the very least, in order to lose the weight, according to your desires to change your body. And in order to get a kind of rapid weight loss, which most people do, that hunger had to be ignored quite a lot, because your body is fine with a little bit of weight loss here and there. It's happy to lose a bit of fat, no problem. But as soon as you start losing too much, it's just a cascade of, I don't know if that's the right word, but hormones that are all set up to ensure that you don't lose too much too fast, because it's in a way your body's blind. If you lose too much too fast, your body thinks, shit, brick, what is going on outside? Are we heading into a period of scarcity? Maybe we're going into winter and there's no food around, and its job is to try and tweak all its little dials to ensure that you maintain as much fat on board as possible, and its job is to get you to eat. So when weight loss happens too quickly, and for most of us this is exactly what happened, your body started to learn, oh my word, she's not feeding me, I've got to scream louder. So it was tweaking all its dials where it could, but this is your first attempt. And it wasn't ready for that. All your life you'd been eating beautifully. You were an intuitive eater. You just ate, you stopped when you're full, you ate, you're hungry. And suddenly it wasn't being heard anymore. And so hunger started to scream louder and louder and louder, until eventually, and for most of us, we had this moment, eventually it began to win. And when hunger began to win, where you started to eat, it was almost as if you kind of were disconnected, and maybe you still experience this. You were disconnected from that hunger. You almost were watching yourself at a distance, and you were eating anyway. And then once that moment was over, it was oftentimes probably quite rapid or secret. But either way, there was a part of you thinking, I shouldn't be doing this. That was a part of you that wanted to diet, that wanted to lose the weight, and was doing it anyway. Your body had started to win. All of these screams and the calls for hunger were so frustrating, so invasive. The nagging desire to eat all the time, we might call that food noise, right? So your body's dialing the volume of the search for food and the thinking about food right up at this point, because it has to get you to eat. And what happens with diets is there's an overcompensatory response. Makes sense, right? But the problem is that kept happening. And here's where the experience of hunger and fear starts to really take root, is then hunger, more often than not, would lead to an overcompensatory, overeating response. And when that happened, after it was done, you probably came away thinking, what bloody hell just happened? Maybe you started feeling feelings of guilt or shame because you thought you'd done something wrong or bad, when in fact your body was just doing exactly what it was designed to do. And then you probably doubled down. Now you've got to restrict harder. Now you've got to make up for the food you've just eaten by eating less for maybe a prolonged period of time. And you and your hunger, you and your body, your natural instincts began to be on opposite teams. And oftentimes I think of myself as a coach that repairs communication. I'm like a relationship coach between your body, your hunger, and you, because at some point, those two things split and hunger became kind of an enemy. And hunger usually ends up winning and it would overcompensate. And it got to a point where even just thinking about restricting, I mean, this is what's so powerful about humans in general, is the power of our minds. And even the point of just thinking, I shouldn't eat that, or I'll start again, I'll start again tomorrow, but tomorrow I'm going to, I'll start again tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to go on a diet. This afternoon I'm not going to have lunch. This evening I'm going to skip dinner. I'm not going to eat until whatever time. I'm definitely not going to eat those, bad foods. We spoke about this last week. And the body's hearing all of that and thinking, we're about to be starved again. And it just keeps ramping up those hunger signals, right? So it was actually hungry, plus you're getting a bunch of extra cravings to get you focused on food. And so hunger became this enemy in a way. And the more you lost control, because your body would eventually win and you'd scratch the itch of hunger, or you'd just go completely disconnected and your body would take over and you'd just be eating despite the fact you could feel yourself thinking, I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be doing this. Right. And this is where I really want to give you a lot of compassion, because I've been here. And also, it's your body's job to get you to eat. It's a very small minority of people that we can call it anorexia, that can actively starve themselves for a prolonged period of time. A lot of them don't win. Eventually, don't win. A lot of people who struggle with anorexia end up in a binge eating cycle. And I've had multiple people reach out to me over the years saying, I'm a failed anorexic. It happens a lot. But in fact, your body's just doing what it needed to do to survive. But for those for whom they were able to maintain anorexia, in my humble experience, not that I've struggled with this, but from what I've seen in the world out there, it has been because anorexia was safe. So the only way a human being can starve themselves deliberately for a prolonged period of time is if that starvation is safer energetically than the alternative. It's not to say it's true, but oftentimes the things that start these things have an imprint, a sort of trauma, not even a trauma that lasts a very long time. And the work that we do, and I don't work with people who are currently struggling with anorexia, but I do help people who've sort of rebounded into compulsive eating. And the work we do is to repair not only the wounds that we created between our hunger and our body and ourself, but also to look at the beliefs that led us into that very first moment of starvation, of undernourishing and underfeeding, oftentimes a very young teenage, in my case, body, when we were growing, when we needed that fuel, those energy and that nutrients more than ever. The trauma response that is left behind as a result of chronic dieting at a young age is deeply embedded, and it takes time to rebuild trust and to heal those wounds. And so I want to say that because the work that I'm about to share with you, you're going to be trying it a few times and maybe you get some fabulous wins this weekend. But it might be that fear around hunger and compulsive overeating shows up for a while until you repeatedly do the skills and the drills that I teach, and you're able to feel real peace, calm, and hopefully one day delight around hunger. So how did we get there? Well, first we acknowledge we've been fighting hunger, and hunger is a beautiful thing that's meant to be there. And then what I did, I'll just share what I did. Usually what I teach when somebody notices a lot of fear around food, if we start to talk to ourselves in a really beautiful way. The very first thing we do in a food freedom journey is to rip away all threats of diets and all threats of restriction and starvation. So the first thing we do is really take away all of that, and we come to rather learn how to eat when we're hungry and stop when we're full. Now, if you're on a weight loss journey, that might feel worrisome for you, and that's understandable. But here's the thing: when you do that, generally weight neutralizes. It doesn't necessarily go down or up at that point. It just stays where it is. That's your body's job, to keep you where you are, right? And we need to do that for as long as it takes until this trust has been rebuilt. And in rebuilding the trust, we're going to use the tools that I share with you now. But I just want to say that if weight loss is something that you're looking for in order to improve your health and the way you move and to feel good about yourself, then when you have rebuilt this trust, you can, and I have many clients who've done this, bring in very gentle nudges and things with a very different intention, because now the intention is health and happiness, not to be as skinny as possible so that everybody will approve of you, right? And you can bring those things in slowly again. But for now, what we've got to do is rip away all the threats of dieting and instead come to a place of showing your body, and this is where you start communicating in a beautiful way. I will feed you. You never have to be worried. The food will come. Maybe it'll be in an hour or two, but when it's time to eat, I will feed you exactly what you want in the quantities that you want it, so you can be nice and comfortable and well nourished for the rest of the day. So I teach my clients something called a tummy check-in. If you would like me to send you a training on that, please just get hold of me and say, Helen, could you send me the tummy check-in training? And I will send that to you with the greatest of pleasure. It's a skill that I love to teach, and I'm happy for anybody who wants to learn it to begin getting access to that training and practicing it, up to 7 times a day if that's what you need. But with the tummy check-ins, you might notice this hunger coming up for you in between moments of eating and nourishing your body. And that's what I noticed when I was on this journey. In fact, if more than 2 hours went by, I started to feel fear because my body had been so chronically restricted so repeatedly that just a whisper of fear used to have my body going, oh God, we got to eat, a whisper of hunger. And so I used to start to talk to myself. If I was trying to wait 2 hours to check in with my tummy again, or maybe I could feel I wasn't all that hungry and I was getting a craving that was more fear-based, then I would just talk to my body and I would keep saying, it's okay, food's coming, we're going to check in again in a couple of hours. And, it's just a little bit of hunger, nothing to fear. I'm going to feed you beautifully when I get the opportunity. So it's as if you're talking to a little child and you're saying, don't you worry, everything's going to be okay. I am committed through the work that we're doing to rebuild this trust. You never have to fear that I will undernourish you again. Now, you might be listening to that worried about, but what if I just eat what I want? I'm going to lose control. That's a story for another day. Trust me, with the work that you do, we learn how to get through all of those compulsions, those non-hunger urges, and we learn how to stop when we're satisfied. All of these things are skills. But let's start with the skill of being kind, so kind to that hunger, building a new relationship where you're like, oh, hunger, I'm so excited to see you, especially if you're coming down off your GLP-1 dosage, if you're going from, whatever, 7.5 to 5 milligrams, and hunger's coming up and you're feeling fear, because in the past, hunger meant overeating, then we do this work of saying, hunger's here. Awesome. This is so exciting. It means I'm coming back to my healthy, happy self. This is what I expected. This is what I'm looking forward to. This will help food taste even better this evening. And then again, you bring all that lovely, calm energy of, I'm so excited to see you, hunger. I'm so excited to feed you as well what you want. Pair that with a tummy check and really listening to your body and trying to stop when you're full. And we're going to do this as many times as it takes until you completely trust me again. But sometimes we have to wait for a meal. Can't always eat what we want when we want it. And sometimes it's hard to get the thing that you're calling for. And I'm going to do my best. And I want you to know now, body, inner intelligence, hunger, that you are safe. Hunger is no longer restriction and deprivation. Hunger becomes just a little signal that you're going to do your best to feed yourself later. And you keep showing your body, hunger is safe. You can trust me. We're going to be okay. We're going to be nourished. We don't have to be overfull, but we're going to get very good at nourishing you exactly what you want in the quantities that you want it. And you'll notice as you do this work that you don't always want junk food and all the things that you might have binged on or overeaten on in the past, because your body's so intelligent. And now it's not fighting for your survival, trying to put too much fat on board because it's about to be starved again. Now it knows the diets are off. We're allowed to eat what we want. And the more you do it, the more you notice your body starts calling for really nutrient-dense whole foods, all the things that people tell you are good for you. And without demonizing any junk food, it's just interesting to me that when we rebuild trust and safety and peace and then eventually delight with hunger, hunger's not there to muck you. It's not there to, I want to swear, it's not there to screw you over. It's there to keep you alive and keep you happy, healthy, and free. And you can tune into that and allow those hunger and fullness signals to guide you back to a beautiful thrival in your body. I hope that's helpful for you. So the bottom line is you lost trust with hunger when the diets first began. And GLP-1 medications are really kind of just another symbol from society saying that hunger is something to be medicated. It isn't. It is GLP-1 medications can be a fabulous tool to help you kind of like, whew, let's just stabilize, and then maybe we can open up hunger and rebuild that relationship again. So if that's something you'd like to do with me, if you would like to implement these skills in a way that's nuanced into your world, in a way where you get that accountability and support and regular feedback so that you can make these changes in a really beautiful and supported way, so that you don't just rebound into overeating and compulsion again, so that you don't have to be on a GLP-1 for the rest of your life. Or you're just on a journey of trying to end binge eating. Maybe you're not on a GLP-1 at all. This is really the foundation. And the better you can understand this, forgive yourself for that first diet you went on and bring these tools in. What you will see is over time, all of that fear and anxiety disappears. And so many of those urges to eat that are non-hunger related, that have come out of panic and fear, will just disappear. I was working with a client yesterday and she was talking about how she had an unusual craving. I mean, glorious problem here. Unusual craving for ice cream. It used to be a real nemesis. She used to feel like she couldn't keep it in the house because she would just eat all of it. But on the weekend, she noticed she had a craving for some salted caramel ice cream. And she went off through the work that we've done and she bought herself some ice cream. And she had a nice bit of it. She could feel the satisfaction because it was a tummy hunger desire. She could feel that feeling. And then that was it. She put it in the freezer and she said to me, it's in the freezer. It's been there for days and I have no desire. That is freedom, my friends. When you have no desire, it's not hanging on by your fingertips, knowing the ice cream's in the freezer and trying to ignore the calls for it. It's knowing that if it's there if you wanted it, and the ability to tune into your tummy and your hunger and know exactly what it wants. And you know that if your hunger asks for ice cream, which it doesn't do very often, but when it does, you will do your best to honor it because you trust that there must be something in that ice cream that your body needs. Maybe you did a heavy workout and you need a bit of sweet and a bit of salt to replace the electrolytes, and sweet for a bit of fuel. Who knows, right? But your body is unbelievably clever. And the more that you do this work, that inner intelligence begins to guide you in a beautiful way. All right? This takes a lot of trust. I get that. And trust cannot be built overnight. This is why the food freedom journey is just not a 4-week quick fix, baby. I mean, you can get huge progress in 4 months, but you need to keep doing this work to repair oftentimes decades of this battle. And it can take time for that trust to build. And it's probably going to be a bumpy ride. You'll make a few mistakes. You'll overeat sometimes. You'll accidentally kind of starve your hunger and it'll get the wrong message, And we just got to be kind and keep getting back to this work. If there's one thing I know for sure, is you can't hate yourself out of a bad relationship with food. A good relationship with food, one that's carefree and relaxed and take it or leave it, happens only through focus, action, but a lot of compassion, a lot of kindness when things don't go the way you wanted them to. Because we have to be kind with the unbelievable kind of trauma and torture your poor body went through while it was just trying to do what it was designed to do. And you decided, oh, hell no. And you began to fight with those inner systems. Let's make friends with them again so you can have a lifetime of freedom ahead. Because when you repair this wound, you don't need to do it again. And trust me, you will not want to go back to doing any majorly restrictive, aggressive dieting because it might wake up this fear again. And the minute you spot it, which has happened to me, I was like, oh, God, no, I don't want that again. And you'll just be like, nope, just going to keep nourishing my body. No need to lose that weight. I'll be okay, right? But if you're on a weight loss journey and you're wanting to lose weight, I have multiple clients who are bringing in beautiful, gentle changes. They might be nutritional. They might be letting go of alcohol. It might be moving more and getting more sunshine, fresh air, and all those things. It might be a combination of all of those things. But ultimately, they've rebuilt trust. So when hunger shows up in a lovely way, they get excited and they remind their body, we're on a beautiful new journey now. The intention of it is so, so vastly different. And the body's able to release that weight slowly and surely because it doesn't feel panic and fear, which is what we want to avoid. I hope you found value from that. If you did, I'd love to hear what came up for you. Pop in the comments, like if something really jumped out for you today and you were like, bloody hell, how did I not see that? I love the effects. And of course, if you enjoyed this and you got value from it, please smash the like button so that the YouTubes knows to share this with other people and send it to other people who are on a similar journey. This is not stuff we hear about. We're being told hunger is a bad thing and it needs to be medicated. And the truth is the complete opposite. I hope you have moments of wonderful freedom. I hope you apply this weekend and you have some glorious food freedom moments to light in them, savor them. You're going to experience more and more of those along your journey. And if you slip up and you have a moment where you lose control, you overeat, be kind. Remember, you're just going to be fuller for longer. which means hunger is going to take a while to show up again. Okay, let me leave it there. I'll be back next Friday. If you'd like to send me your questions ahead of time, I would love to receive them and I'll do my best to answer them. And if you'd like to join me on the Food Freedom Friday Live, I'd love to have you here. Shoot your comments to me as we're cruising along. Let me know what your ahas are. I'm just checking. I didn't even have the comments on. Wouldn't have been able to see them if you had. But over time, we'd be loving to build a bit more of a community around these Fridays. Once I've locked in a time, that will get easier. And from next week, you'll be able to sign up to a mailing list as well to make sure that you're notified about the time and what the topic of the week is, which will be awesome. So if you're enjoying these Freedom Fridays, maybe that little point of accountability, or maybe you're here to learn something new, I'm happy to do them and I'm happy to serve. Just make sure you take the information and begin to implement it so that you can get the results that you're here for. All right. If you would like to apply this work, please reach out to me if you want to work with me. foodfreedomfoundations.com/call. The link is in the description below. I would absolutely love to discuss the possibility of working with you either privately, or you can join the incredible Food Freedom Fighters group. We're a small group of very dedicated, very supportive, awesome individuals. And I have no doubt that if you struggle with food, you're one of those people too. Because in my experience, people who struggle with food tend to be very loving, very driven, very hardworking, and very kind, generally people pleasers. So we can show up beautifully for everybody else, but maybe you struggle to show up for you, and I'd like to help you be able to do that. Put this in this work, prioritize yourself so that you can experience these changes, so that this time next year, you're feeling completely free and able to have that ice cream in your freezer without even having a desire for it. Wouldn't that be incredible? Have a wonderful weekend ahead. Shoot me your questions for next Friday, and may the food freedom be with you in the days ahead. Cheers, everybody. Have a great one.